Hello, thank you for joining with me. We are in A Course in Miracles workbook for students, part 1 of the workbook, and we are in lesson 138. Heaven is the decision I must make. In this world, heaven is a choice because here we believe there are alternatives to choose between. We think that all things have an opposite, and what we want, we choose. If heaven exists, there must be hell as well, for contradiction is the way we make what we perceive and what we think is real. Creation knows no opposite, but here is opposition, part of being real. It is this strange perception of the truth that makes the choice of heaven seem to be the same as the relinquishment of hell. It is not really thus. Yet what is true in God's creation cannot enter here unless it is reflected in some form the world can understand. Truth cannot come where it could only be perceived with fear, for this would be the error. Truth can be brought to illusions. So truth cannot come where it could only be perceived with fear, for this would be the error of truth can be brought to illusions. Opposition makes the truth unwelcome, and it cannot come. Choice is the obvious escape from what appears as opposites. Decision lets one of conflicting goals become the aim of effort and the expenditure of time. Without decision, time is but a waste, and effort dissipated. It is spent for nothing in return, and time goes by without results. There is no sense of gain, for nothing is accomplished and nothing learned. You need to be reminded that you think 1,000 choices are confronting you, when there is really only one to make, and even this but seems to be a choice. Do not confuse yourself with all the doubts that myriad decisions would induce. You make but one, and when that one is made, you will perceive it was no choice at all. For truth is true, and nothing else is real. There is no opposite to choose instead. There is no contradiction to the truth. Choosing depends on learning, and the truth cannot be learned but only recognized. In recognition, its acceptance lies, and as it is accepted, it is known. But knowledge is beyond the goals we seek to teach within the framework of this course. Ours are teaching goals to be attained through learning how to reach them, what they are, and what they offer you. Decisions are the outcome of your learning, for they rest on what you have accepted as the truth of what you are and what your needs must be. In this insanely complicated world, heaven appears to take the form of choice, rather than merely being what it is. Of all the choices you have tried to make, this is the simplest, most definitive, the prototype of all the rest, the one which settles all decisions. If you could decide the rest, this one remains unsolved. But when you solve this one, the others are resolved with it, for all decisions but conceal this one by taking different forms. Here is the final and the only choice in which is truth accepted or denied. So we begin today considering the choice that time was made to help us make. Such is its holy purpose, now transformed from the intent you gave it, that it be a means for demonstrating hell is real, hope changes to despair, and life itself must end in the overcome by death, and life itself must in the end be overcome by death. In death alone are opposites resolved, for ending opposition is to die. And thus salvation must be seen as death, for life is seen as conflict. To resolve the conflict is to end your life as well. These mad beliefs can gain unconscious hold of great intensity and grip the mind with terror and anxiety so strong that it will not relinquish its ideas about its own protection. It must be saved from salvation, threatened to be safe, and magically armored against the truth. And these decisions are made unaware to keep them safely undisturbed, apart from question and from reason and from doubt. Heaven is chosen consciously. The truth cannot be made until alternatives are accurately seen and understood. All that is veiled in shadows. And I'm going to read that. All that is veiled in shadows refers to beliefs that have been buried in the unconscious. These are the mad beliefs referred to in the previous paragraph. They need to be raised from their protecting shroud of unawareness so they can be consciously reevaluated and seen to be baseless. And where was I? I always do that. Okay. All that is veiled in shadows must be raised to understanding to be judged again, this time with heaven's help. And all mistakes in judgment which the mind had made before are open to correction, as the truth dismisses them as causeless. Now are they without effects. They cannot be concealed because their nothingness is recognized. The conscious choice of heaven is as sure as is the ending of the fear of hell, when it is raised from its protecting shroud of unawareness and is brought to light. Who can decide between the clearly seen and the unrecognized? Yet who can fail to make a choice between alternatives when only one is seen as valuable, the other as a wholly worthless thing, a but imagined source of guilt and pain? Who hesitates to make a choice like this? And shall we hesitate to choose today? We make the choice for heaven as we wake and spend 5 minutes making sure that we have made the one decision that is sane. We recognize we make a conscious choice between what has existence and what has nothing but an appearance of the truth. Its pseudo-being, brought to what is real, is flimsy and transparent in the light. It holds no terror now, for what was made enormous, vengeful, pitiless, with hate demands obscurity for fear to be invested there. Now it is recognized as but a foolish, trivial mistake. Before we close our eyes and sleep tonight, we reaffirm the choice that we have made each hour in between. And now we give the last 5 minutes of our waking day to the decision with which we awoke. As every hour passed by, we declared our choice again in a brief quiet time devoted to maintaining sanity. And finally, we close the day with this, acknowledging we choose but what we want. Heaven is the decision I must make. I make it now and will not change my mind, because it is the only thing I want. And so it is. I'm just going to chat a little bit while I pull out my book for the commentary by Robert Perry and Alan Watson, my Torah book. I just want to say very quickly that I absolutely do share if I'm inspired to do so from my experience. And that's really all I can say. If I don't try to force anything, or if anybody has any questions, please ask me. But I don't I'm not forcing anything. I'm just, when inspired, I will share from whatever comes up for me. I'm not trying to purposely share on these lessons, but I'm more than happy to help. If anybody has any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask me. Okay. And Alan Watson and Robert Perry, heaven is the decision I must make. Now the purpose of this lesson is to make the choice for heaven, the choice that time was made to help us make. And I read these commentaries because they helped me immensely years ago when I first started reading them, and they help me immensely today. It's all in the moment. It's all in the moment. So, 2, the first and last moments of your day for 5 minutes, we are going to use 5 minutes to make a firm, definitive choice for heaven. Begin by saying, heaven is the decision I must make. I make it now and will not change my mind because it is the only thing I want. Then spend the rest of the time bringing your mind to a place where you truly mean these words. And I'll do a separate meditation that you can follow along with if you're interested in doing so. I'll enjoy the meditation so much. I always wish that there was some out there. I never found any, so I was inspired to do that with the readings. And I hope whoever utilizes them, that they help them. I know some are noisy and so forth, but I'm not a professional. I'm just following my heart, and they help me. So, all right, so this will probably involve bringing to light unconscious beliefs that life is a terrifying exercise in which all hope is finally swallowed up in death, and in which death is sadly the only escape from conflict. Bring this belief system to the light and call on heaven's help. And you will see that this view is totally invalid, nothing but an appearance of the truth. Then set this hellish view of life, divested of all reality, next to the alternative, heaven. If you do, you will see that choosing heaven is so obvious and natural that it is no choice at all. So shorter practice periods hourly for a brief quiet time. Consciously reaffirm the choice you made in the morning by saying, heaven is the decision I must make. I make it now and will not change my mind because it is the only thing I want. There is a real emphatic note in these lines, so you might want to emphasize must and now and will not. Remarks. Devote the evening practice to reaffirming the choice you made at the beginning of the day and reinforced every hour of the day. By ending in this way, you make the entire day about the choice for heaven. I'm game. Let's do this. Let's make the entire day about the choice for heaven. Commentary. I'm just going to try to readjust here. The lesson makes some stark contrasts between this world and creation. One is a realm of duality in which opposition is part of being real. The other is a realm of unity, of perfect oneness. Creation knows no opposite. This is a classic discussion about what can be called duality and non-duality. Non-duality or oneness is what is real. Where there is only oneness, there can be no choice because there is nothing between which to choose. If oneness is reality, then choice, any choice, is an illusion and nothing more. Choice is impossible, inconceivable. That is the reality. Within our dream, this world, however, choice is not only possible, it is inevitable, it is life. Within this world, truth cannot enter because it would be met only with fear. The choicelessness of oneness seems the ultimate threat to a mind that thinks duality is all there is. Therefore, in this world, we are learning to make one final choice. It is a choice to end all choices, the choice between illusion and reality. Time exists for nothing but this choice to give us time to make it. We are being asked to choose heaven instead of hell. Years ago, before I encountered the Course, I had been through a lot of things, read a lot of books, and attended a lot of seminars. I sat down one day to try to distill in writing what I had learned from life. I was writing for my sons, then in their teens. I recall quite clearly that at that point in my life, I felt I was only sure of two things. 1, you can trust the universe. 2, happiness is a decision I make. I won't bother to comment on the first item here, but the second is something very fundamental to the Course. The realization that nothing outside of my mind makes me happy or unhappy. My happiness is entirely the result of my own choice. When I first read this lesson in the workbook, I was stunned by the similarity of the concept, even the very words. Heaven is the decision I must make. Perhaps the fact that I had arrived at this conclusion on my own was one of the reasons I took so rapidly to the Course. It confirmed what to me was the essence of my own personal wisdom. Words that, as far as I knew, were entirely my own. And it's so funny because I don't believe anything is my own. Nothing, even a photograph, nothing is mine. But I understand, you're struck with this phrase and it's like, wow, it's like a bolt of lightning. And then everything up to that point is what brought that about. Anyway, it's really cool. Here was this book saying the same thing and saying that we must choose heaven and that this is the decision we have to make. The Course is saying that learning this is what life is all about. It is the choice that time was made to help us make. It is a choice, a decision that accepts the total responsibility of the mind for the way it perceives reality. But the lesson is saying far more than this. The discussion of duality and non-duality in this lesson explains clearly why so many of us, indeed most of us, experience such tearing inner conflict over accepting this simple truth. We have become convinced that opposites in conflict are not simply part of life. They are life. They are reality to us. Life is seen as conflict. This belief shows up, for instance, in the somewhat frivolous objection that heaven, where nothing changes and there are no opposites, sounds boring. We are addicted to the drama, devoted to the delicious agony of indecision. To be without choices to us seems like death. To finally and completely resolve the conflict appears to us like the end of life itself. Yet, that is what the Course promises and asks of us, the end of all conflict. When this truly dawns on our minds, we often recoil in mortal terror. These mad beliefs can gain unconscious hold of great intensity and grip the mind with terror and anxiety so strong that it will not relinquish its ideas about its own protection. It must be saved from salvation. It is unconscious. We do not realize what is going on, but we literally run away from the truth and shrink from total love, not knowing what we are doing. Virtually everyone who works with the Course over any length of time experiences something like this in their own life. It seems as though we are being asked to die, and in a sense we are. Die to life as we have known it. The only way out is through fear to love. Heaven is chosen consciously. For a decision to be conscious, both alternatives must be seen clearly. We have to see hell in the plain light of day as well as heaven. Our fear of hell, our terror of destruction, our agony of guilt must be raised to understanding, to be judged again, this time with heaven's help. It was our own mind's desire for an alternative to heaven that made hell, and we must understand that duality is a beast of our own making, and that our desire had no real effect. Who can decide between the clearly seen and the unrecognized? Yet, who can fail to make a choice between alternatives when only one is seen as valuable, the other as a wholly worthless thing, a but imagined source of guilt and pain? Our making of duality has seemed like such a monstrous thing, buried in our unconscious. It was made enormous, vengeful, pitiless with hate. But when it is brought into conscious awareness, now it is recognized as but a foolish, trivial mistake. Our guilt over it is all that holds it in place. When we look at it again, this time with heaven's help, the choice to let it go becomes the only possible decision we can make. And in that decision, we are released. Thank you so much for joining with me. Let's make the decision of heaven today together. Lesson 138 to 7. Heaven is the decision I must make. I love you. Thank you.